Good morning. We want to get into some really cool art today that is associated with the with images that come from space, and we'll go ahead and also talk about images that are coming from satellites. So before we get started, there are a couple of definitions or drawings that you might want to make in your notebooks today. So if you want to get those out and get ready, this would be a good time to pause the video before we go further. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. When we are talking about geologic features, think about a mountain, think about a river, think about a valley or a desert. These are all geologic features that we can see from space. Now, space would be the International Space Station, which is about 400 kilometers up in what we call lower orbit. That International Space Station is constantly going around the Earth at a very high rate of speed, and the astronauts are taking images and doing work in the lab up there while they are in orbit. So just to give you an idea how fast they're actually moving, the astronauts see 15 sunrises and 15 sunsets every day. So imagine you see a sunrise, sunset 15 times a day. That's kind of cool. The other thing to think about is we also have satellites that are in orbit. And satellites are sent up by companies and they're sent up by countries. And those satellites do lots of things. They help understand the weather. They help understand weather patterns. And they can also be used to look at forest fires and other things going on. Satellites can also be used to help with satellite phones or can be helped with transmission of television. So these are different things that can, are beneficial from satellites and of course the International Space Station. But let's go ahead and get into this so we can get into our art project today. The first thing we want to identify, there are 4 processes that we are going to focus on today that are related to geologic features. Now, geologic just simply means the study of the earth. So that would be geology. So this is things related to the earth. So let's go ahead and get started. As soon as I can find my mouse, I will move. There we go. Okay, things to know before we get started. 4 basic things. The first one is called the aeolian process. And the aeolian process is just simply a feature on Earth that has been, that has been created or associated with the wind. So imagine the wind blowing. That wind has got to be really strong for it to leave scrapes and marks in the earth. So that is called the aeolian process. The second one is one that you're probably more familiar with, volcanic process. And of course, just like the name shows, volcanoes. So this feature is something that is created by or associated with volcanic activity. The next one is called fluvial. And the fluvial process is just simply a process or a feature that has been associated with flowing water. So think about a river. That river flows and it leaves a path in the earth. The same thing with an ocean. So anything that's a flowing water component, that is a fluvial. So think flow, flowing water, okay? Then we have impact process. Now think about this, impact. So that's impact. And the only thing that can be associated with is going to be a meteor coming from space, landed on Earth, bam, leaves a big dent in the ground. That is impact, okay? So that's only related to meteors. So let's go ahead and look at what some of these would look like. Each of these that you're going to see on the next few slides are connected back to these 4 processes. So here we go. Okay, the first one is going to be a sand dune. And if you're not familiar with a sand dune is just simply a large mound or pile of sand that has been formed by the wind. Now, we're not talking about a little pile. We're talking about one that would be as tall as a house. These are huge. And if they're big enough they have to be big enough for you to see them from space. So if you can see in that image, you can see those piles of sand. Those are huge. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is called wind streak. This is created when wind blows or dust particles blow on or off the surface, and it scrapes and it leaves streaks on rock and surfaces. So you're talking about something that's it's got to really be some strong wind. Now, this one you're probably not familiar with at all. These are not as common, but I'll explain them anyway, just so you say that you've seen one. A yardang. A yardang is really just simply a sharp or irregular ridge of compacted sand, and it just is lying in the same direction as the current wind. So this would be all of this up in here, and then of course it leaves it's all compacted together. And this is normally in desert areas. So again, you're not going to see many of these, are not as common, but I just thought the picture was cool, thought I would tell you about it. Now, this one is one of my favorites. This is a volcano and ash plume. So think about it. A volcano is just simply an opening in the Earth's crust, and it lets that rock and gas and debris escape to come out of the surface. So if you think about it this way, the volcano is seismic activity, as we talked about the other day with waves. So that seismic activity, energy is building up under the surface, and in this case, it comes through the top of the mountain or the top of the volcano, and that molten rock and those gases and the debris comes flying out. Okay, this is a central vent or caldera. Now, these are a little harder to detect from space, but again, this is a great image. So in this image, you see that you have a round area. It's usually at the top of a volcano, and essentially it's a caldera is basically the pot at the top where all of that heat and gas comes out. So this, in this case, it escapes from this area right here, but you can see it's round or circular in shape, and it's usually a depressed area, so it kind of comes down a little bit, and that's where that it kind of all builds up and it escapes there. Volcanic deposits, these are also known as lava flows or ash flows. When that volcano erupts, that hot magma comes out, it's got to go somewhere. And when it flows out onto the surface, and of course it will eventually cool. That's just called a lava flow because it flows out of the volcano. And the ash flow, if there's been a big explosion related to that volcano, that's called ash flow because the ash flies out and deposits everywhere all over, and it's kind of like it stains the earth. So that might be the easiest way to remember that. Let's get on to our next one. This is a channel, and a channel is often just simply created by a flow of water. So you can see what that one looks like. These are multiple waterways. These are called channels. A valley in this case is a set of channels that are formed by the water when it drains down slope. So it's coming down, and they usually have a branch-like appearance. So if you look at that branch-looking area, this branch looks like a branch of a tree. That's how you know that it is a valley. A delta. Delta is just a wetland area that forms where the river waters empties into a bigger body of water. So in this case, that body of water that you see in the bottom part of the picture, that is an ocean, and this is a river, and all of that builds up and it dumps down into, it empties into the larger body of water, in this case, the ocean. Impact crater. This is that circular or round depression in the earth. Bam, when that crater hit, when the meteor hit, that's the mark that it leaves in earth. That mark's not going away. That's like, bam, getting a scar. So it is the same, it's the same thing. That is a big meteor crater that strikes, a meteor that strikes the earth, and it leaves that big crater. Okay, so now let me explain what you're going to be doing. You are going to have several pictures come up on the screen, and I want you to think about what geologic process this is and what is your evidence that you know this. So explain what you're seeing. You're going to see some images. So think about it. Um, is it fluvial? Is it volcanic? You think about that. How is it formed? Was it formed? How do you know this? What is it? What's your evidence in the picture that helps you justify this? So we're gonna make a claim, and then you're gonna show me your evidence. You're gonna write down your evidence. Why? What tells you that? Just don't say, oh, well, I think so. That's not good enough this time. I need you to really think about this, because then we're gonna go on to the art activity, and we're gonna use some of the images that came from space for something that we're going to create. So think carefully, ask lots of questions, go back through your notes, and take your time and have fun with this activity. So I'll catch you on the other side. Again, look for what features stand out and have a good time with it. I'll see you soon.